Hi everyone, it's Kerry Jeffrey here from Emotional Autoimmunity, navigating the emotional side of life with chronic illness. And today I'm really happy to be speaking to Jordan Fallis, all the way from Canada, where they're celebrating Thanksgiving today. So before I let you meet Jordan, I'll tell you a little bit about him. And Jordan is a brain and mental health journalist and founder of Optimal Living Dynamics. His work has been featured in the Canadian Medical Association Journal, Canadian Pharmacists Journal, and the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. And Jordan spends a lot of his time scouring the medical research, writing about what he finds, and testing different theories on himself. His passion is discovering valuable cutting-edge health solutions and sharing them with people who desperately need them. And I think that's a fantastic thing to be doing. Welcome, Jordan. So lovely to meet you.
Thanks for inviting me on to talk. I'm glad to be here.
Fantastic. So can you tell us what health issues you have and how did they affect your day-to-day life, and how do they still affect you?
So yeah, I don't really have any more health issues anymore. I have them under control, but I guess you can still say I have them because it's still something I need to keep an eye on day to day. So I guess I'll start way back when I was a kid. I grew up, I had like asthma and acne. Asthma in particular, like when I was really young, I had all the inhalers and the puffers. So I had to rely on that. And then, so as I got into high school, I had acne. And then, but the thing is during this whole time, I also had depression and anxiety. I just didn't know as a kid that was going on, right? So then I went to university, and I started to get over my asthma and acne because I cut out gluten, dairy. So it was going away, it was clearing up, it was good. But the depression and anxiety was still kind of hanging over me, right? So, but I still wasn't really realizing how it was a problem. So eventually I had multiple concussions and my brain started to fall apart. Like it was in a crisis at that point. So I was pretty much forced to look at it at that point. And so it's been a long journey. Then during that time, actually, when I did have those concussions, I also moved into a home with a bunch of mold, black mold. So that made it worse. Anyway, so then I had low testosterone, subclinical hypothyroidism around that time too. Anyway, so I have a whole list of different things that have happened to me, but I've come out on the other side. I wouldn't be diagnosed with these things anymore, so that's lucky. But when I did have all these things, my life was kind of just in shambles, you know. But yeah, now it's much better, and I'm lucky to have gotten out of it. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think as somebody who works with people with mental health issues myself, as a counsellor and a hypnotherapist, I've worked with people with anxiety for many years. And I had anxiety when I was younger, but I would say it was normal, like normal anxiety that could be controlled. But I found when I got Hashimoto's, when I went through my crisis, the anxiety was not normal. Like it was this uncontrollable, I would have rolling panic attacks that were really debilitating, and there was nothing I can do about it. I mean, do you think that it's a different sort of anxiety experience that most people would relate to?
Yeah, because at this point, it's not like I'm free of all human anxiety, because that's impossible, right? Because all humans have anxiety. But yeah, it was too extreme. Like it was all the time. It was controlling my life. It was too much, right? So yeah, I absolutely know what it's like, especially when I was in that moldy house. It was something about that building and the environment that I was in that it's just, the anxiety got really bad, and it was all the time. And anyways, luckily I've gotten out of that. So but yeah, I absolutely know what you mean. Like it's just it feels a bit different, you know. So,
And Jordan, what was the hardest part for you emotionally about coming to terms with your illness?
I would say it was coming to the realization that I didn't feel the same, especially after I had those concussions, just realizing, okay, my brain just isn't working right, you know. And I always did well in school, and I always, I guess, took pride in the fact that I didn't really think I was smart, but other people, you're pretty smart. So, but then it kind of felt like I had lost a lot of that. So it was kind of, that was jarring at the time. I guess the other thing would be no one really could seem to be able to help me out. So I kind of had to do it myself, right? So I went to doctor, and they're like, oh, well, here's this pill. And I'm thinking, well, like, I don't think this is the solution. I tried it, seemed to help a bit, but like a lot of people, you realize there's a ton of side effects. And I just thought there has to be a better way, right? So so that was also kind of just shocking as well. I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to do some digging here myself. And then I guess a third thing would be people looked at me and they thought I was healthy, because at this point, I didn't have acne anymore. I had lost a lot of weight because I cut out gluten. I cleaned up my diet. But inside, things were kind of a mess, right? So yeah, so that was hard too, because a lot of people didn't understand how I could be sick. It was like this invisible illness, is an invisible thing that I was dealing with. So I guess all those three things were kind of those were hard to deal with, because it was all at once, and I just had to kind of push through it, you know. So
yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I think that was probably the scariest part for me at my worst. And actually, today is my 2-year hashiversary. So I'm sort of looking back on, you know, how I was at my worst, and I was close to going into a coma and not able to function. And I was aware that my brain was impaired. And, you know, being, you know, an intelligent, competent woman, capable person, to be aware that you are brain impaired and that you can't think clearly and that you have no motivation and you don't know what's going to happen to you, and having all that anxiety was probably one of the most difficult aspects, because in a sense it was like I'd lost my identity, I'd lost myself.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly how I felt too. It was like, and I didn't really know how to explain it to people, because I just kept saying the same things over and over to my parents. I'm like, something feels wrong, something's not right, I don't know what to do. And that went on for a while, and I had to drop out of school at that point when I was in university. And yeah, so it was like, it was just such a shock. And yeah, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, and it's scary to be in that situation. I mean, what did it really take? Like when you said that moment of realizing if something was going to happen, it was up to you. And I remember that moment walking out of my first doctor's office with, you know, the prescription in my hand, realizing that if I was going to survive this, it was up to me to do something about it, because I wasn't going to get any help there. You know, how did you then take those steps towards saying, I'm going to get my life back?
Well, yeah, the thing is it felt like so many different multiple steps, because I kept going back to conventional medicine, back and forth, because I mean, I had to keep my life going, right? So I relied on the medication, and they did prop me up, but there was always this time when I thought, okay, something doesn't feel right. This isn't the final solution. I need to keep searching here, right? So then I tried coming off of the medication and weaning off and going back on. I think I did that maybe 2 or 3 times. And then finally, last time, it was just, okay, this is really bad. This is it. This is the last time I'm going to take these meds. So I came off of them, and I just went through all these books. I dedicated a lot of time at this point, because I had some extra time. So it was just complete tunnel vision. And I thought, okay, I need to get to the bottom of this. And so yeah, it was just, I don't want it to seem like I just had all the answers and that was it. And then all of a sudden, just bam, I'm better. You know, it wasn't like that at all, because it was a struggle. And there's going to be, for people out there who are listening who might struggle with mental illness, it's going to be a lot of back and forth. It's not like a straight line up of success. It's just kind of up and down. So yeah, it was kind of all over the map. So.
And that's exactly right. And I think a lot of people get discouraged because they hear people talking about or reading about what they did, you know, and I have the answer to this and all of that sort of stuff. And it really is such a unique individual thing, isn't it? I mean, my path to remission could be very different from your path to remission. You know, it really depends on your own chemistry and all the different things that are going on in your body and, you know, your mental attitude, a whole lot of different things. There's so many different variables, isn't there?
You're absolutely right, because some people, they might have low mood and depression, anxiety, and for some people it might be as simple as just cleaning up the gut and cutting out gluten and cutting out dairy. But in my case, I had to do that, but then on top of it, I had multiple concussions. I had to do neural feedback, which is a lot more intensive, right? And then other people who have just brain injuries, maybe they don't need to change their diet too much. Maybe they just had one head trauma, and now they need to do some neural feedback, maybe some low-level laser therapy. So yeah, it can vary a lot between people, and yeah, so it's a very good point. Yeah.
So Jordan, have you noticed any positive changes or insights that you've had that have been like a direct result of your illnesses and that experience?
Well, I'm physically much healthier now. So I know it's kind of weird. My illnesses made me physically healthier, but I don't think, like, if I think about my concussion, if that didn't happen, I don't think I would have made all these strides in my health. I would have maybe gone down a different path, and it would have been a lot different. And I probably would have I'd still be struggling with health problems now, or it would just have escalated more and more as I got older. So, so that's one thing. I was also forced to face my mental health problems at a young age, because I guess a lot of guys, they may wait until they're in their 30s or 40s, and then maybe they're married, they have kids, and they're like, oh, I've been struggling with this my whole life, maybe I should get some help for it. So I was forced in my 20s to just figure it out, and so I think that's kind of a blessing, considering everything that's happened to me. I kind of look back and I'm like, all right, well, you can make the best of this, right? So also very grateful that I'm better. You know, it took a lot of time and money, but I mean, I'm just grateful for my health now, because when I was young, it was ridiculous. I just took it for granted, right? So yeah, and then I also have more compassion for people too, because I mean, I see people who are struggling, they have mental health problems, and I get it, you know, like they just don't really have complete control over the way they're feeling, and that's just the way it is for them. So I understand people's behavior a bit more when they maybe lash out or do something. I'm like, all right, well, it's not always, it's not like they logically thought I'm going to act this way now, you know? So, so all those things are just kind of things that go through my brain day to day when I see people and think about my life. So yeah.
I think that's true. For me, it was sort of like you suddenly get access to this different world, like this whole different world out there of chronic illness and people going through different things that was invisible to me before. Like I knew about it, but I didn't really understand it. And I think, you know, chronic illness is one of those things that you don't really get it until you get it, and then you understand.
Yeah, I agree, because like a lot of the things I think about in terms of health and write about on my website, it's not on a lot of people's radar, you know, and it wouldn't be on my radar unless I was sick. It's not until you're sick, really sick, where you have no choice but to implement certain things and look into certain things. So yeah, it's like a whole new world. You're right, because once you start, like when I walk around sometimes, I guess it sounds judgmental, but I might see someone with acne, like I used to have acne. I'm like, oh, maybe he should consider cutting this out of his diet. And I know it sounds like very condescending and judgmental, but I would have never thought that before. I just would have thought, oh, that guy has skin problems like me, you know? So anyways, yeah, you do see the world a little differently.
Yeah, I don't think it's sort of judgmental. It's almost like, you know, it's that party that wants to help. You used to say, look, hey, I used to have that and I don't have that anymore. And, you know, maybe you could try this. But I think the frustrating thing with that, isn't it, is that until people are ready to do something, they just don't want to hear about it. It's like almost like, you know, people who stop smoking going around trying to convert everybody to stop smoking. It's a little bit like you can get that evangelical thing going on, like, hey, everyone, give up the gluten. It's great.
I know you could get kind of preachy about it, and I definitely did at the beginning. When I kind of started on this journey, I went to my family. I'm like, you guys got to try this out. You feel amazing, right? It's great. But then I started to realize, I'm like, okay, well, a lot of people just don't want to hear it. They don't care. So, I mean, I've kind of toned it back, you know, just kept it. If people have questions to me in particular, they know I eat this way, then I'll go on about it, but I'm not gonna, I know what you mean. You can get kind of intense about it, especially at the beginning, because you're just so surprised that it's helps so much.
Yeah, it really is amazing, the the impact that something as simple as changing what you eat can have on not only your physical health, but your mental and emotional health. I mean, that's huge. And, you know, until you can get people to try it, then that's the interesting part. And since I became sick, like chronic illness, it's one of those things on my intake form when I'm seeing a new client, I ask them about any physical issues they're having. But now I specifically have a box that says, do you have any autoimmune disease? Because I'm aware of that different layer now of how that's affecting their mental and emotional health as well as their physical health. So it's certainly, as a professional, it's given me a lot more insight, and I think that's it can really broaden your perspective and make a lot of things clear that you didn't really understand before.
No, yeah, you're right, because a lot of people just don't realize that certain foods can be so detrimental, not only to like gaining weight, because a lot of people just want to lose weight, that's usually their main priority, but also just affect your mood and your energy levels day to day. It's just more people should be aware, but it's I guess like we were just discussing, you don't want to preach about it too much. So yeah.
No. Yeah. So you've probably seen, you were saying that, you know, you went back and forth with the medical profession and trying different things, and it can be a really discouraging and difficult experience. So Jordan, what advice would you like to tell people about dealing with the medical profession that's been the most helpful or empowering for you?
Well, first of all, don't try to argue with conventional doctors. I learned that pretty quickly. I would come in with research papers and I'd be like, oh, well, look at this, we should try this. But I mean, a lot of them don't want to hear it, especially from someone young. So if you're young, try to just keep your mouth shut. So that's not very encouraging or inspiring. So because conventional medicine just they don't really look at the root cause, right? So I forget who said it, but there was this doctor who said, if you step on a tack, conventional medicine will give you aspirin for it. But functional medicine, they'll remove the tack. They'll find the tack and remove it. So my advice would be to try to find a good functional medicine practitioner or like a naturopath. But even then, no practitioner or doctor is going to fix you completely. You might have to see multiple doctors. I went to a number of different integrative and functional medicine practitioners, nutritionists, and I got great ideas from all of them, but none of them really got to the bottom of it all, right? And so that's not to say that they're not amazing practitioners. It's just you need to walk away from it with those ideas, and you need to start researching and implementing things yourself, and then you find more ideas from their original ideas, which can be interesting. So I have to thank a lot of the practitioners I've dealt with because they've pushed me in the right direction. But to say that any one practitioner is going to completely heal you, I'm not convinced. Maybe that's just because that's my personal experience. But I mean, there are tons of amazing functional practitioners out there, so I would recommend trying to find one of them. But yeah, and then taking ideas and running with it yourself, because at the end of the day, that's what you're going to have to do anyway. Especially with diet and supplementation, you're going to have to do certain things every day for yourself. So yeah.
No, I think that's great advice, because I think a lot of people are still looking like for the Holy Grail, that they're going to find the one doctor or the one pill or the one supplement or the one thing that's going to be the answer. And it's not, there's no one thing. It's that combination of things that you're doing. And, you know, I see a naturopath still that, you know, probably now I'm getting to the point where I'm not going to have to see him regularly, just see him when I need to. You know, I have my own doctor that I only see now when I need to, as opposed to, you know, 2 years ago when I was going weekly and fortnightly and having tests all the time. So it's really, we're sort of like a big jigsaw puzzle, aren't we? And you've got to look at that, okay, that person's got that piece of the puzzle, and if I add that in and that helps, and then that person's got that information, and then that research over there, that gives me a little bit more, and then that person's experience adds a little bit more of the puzzle. So it's really that trial by error sort of experimentation thing, isn't it?
Yeah, you gotta tweak things as you go. You know, sometimes there's advice you try, you feel worse, and then you avoid that, and then you add something and that helps. So it's like, yeah, it's like a back and forth kind of a balancing act, especially when it comes to mental health, because that's essentially what you're trying to do. You're trying to balance the way you feel day to day. So yeah, it can be it can be tough, but it's worth it as you go along, as you gather more and more info, and then implementing on yourself and seeing the results. It's encouraging to keep going because you know you're kind of on the right path, you know. So
yeah, and it really is that you know, because healing isn't linear. It is, as you said, it's that up and down process that's unique to you. And I think a lot of people hit the downs, like they have a few ups and they go, yes, this is it, I'm getting better. And then they have a down and they think, oh, well, that didn't work. So I'll just stop trying. And it's really just about, you know, recovery takes time. And sometimes it does take, you know, weeks or months for a particular process that you're doing to really start to kick in and show the benefits. Has that been your experience, Jordan?
Yeah, like it definitely takes a large amount of time. Like for me, it was, like I said, so the concussion happened in 2010, the really bad concussion. I had some other ones before that, but it was just, yeah, like a year and a half ago where I'm feeling a lot better, you know, like back to myself. So yeah, and all between that time, and that sounds almost terrifying to say, it's like 4 or 5 years. I don't think it's going to take that long for some people, but in my case, yeah, it took some time, and but over time, you start to see the progress, and it encourages you to keep going, you know. So.
And sometimes you can only see how far you've come by looking back. And that's what I found early on. Having a symptom diary was really, really good in the early days, because I could look at that and, you know, have a really discouraging week and think, I'm not getting any better, you know, what's going to happen to me, get really down. And then I'd actually look back in the symptom diary and go, oh, wow, I'm not having that anymore, or I'm not experiencing that anymore, or that's not as bad as it used to be. So that really helped give me that perspective to actually see that I was making progress and things were changing, because it can get discouraging at times, can't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I didn't keep like a diary like that. I kept track of certain things that I was trying, but it was funny though. I'd see my mom every so often, so I'd go visit family. And whenever I saw family, it was always good to say, or to hear them say, oh, you look so healthy, or you seem so calm and like balanced, or like, wow, what have you been doing? It's working. Like I really see the effects. So that was always great, knowing that I was going down this non-traditional path, and then my family saying, oh, I guess it's working. Like I can tell it's working. So yeah, so I guess that's just another way to get feedback is through family and friends. Yeah.
For sure. And has having your illness changed the way you feel about your body, Jordan?
Yeah, I'm just amazed at how it can fix itself over time. Like its ability to heal itself is, you give it the right building blocks and you give it the right feedback. Yeah, I appreciate it a lot more. When I was younger, I would just eat all sorts of junk, and I didn't realize how I was damaging my body so bad. And now looking back, I'm like, well, no wonder I got sick. I remember, I think this was in high school, so it was a while ago, but I remember we'd go to Wendy's. It's like a burger place, like Burger King, and they had this Baconator, and I'll never forget. I got a double Baconator. I decided to get 2 of them, and I ate it. And this is when I didn't care about my health at all, obviously. And I remember eating it and just feeling sick for a whole week, and just so sick. And my friends were so proud of me that I ate 2 of them or so. It was really childish. But anyways, I look back now, and I would never eat anything like that. I wouldn't put my body through that at all now. So anyways, I'm grateful that my body is better. So now I want to treat it better too, because it's better.
That's been exactly my experience of having that moment of, you know, complete awe and profound appreciation for my body, just thinking, wow, you know, if I give you the right things, you can just do amazing stuff. My body's willingness to heal and fix itself is just absolutely amazing. And I think, you know, that's been, for me, it's been the best part of having my illness, because it's totally changed my relationship with my body into this, you know, mutually respectful partnership that we have most of the time. And I do have a much bigger appreciation. And I think, yeah, it's really good, because everybody I've spoken to, I think across the board, you know, male, female, regardless of what they've got, I think everyone's either struggling to come to terms with that, like they're still struggling to come to terms with getting over that, you know, maybe feeling of resentment or betrayal by their body, or their body's weak, or they're, you know, they're on the other side of that and going, yeah, my body is awesome and I'm just going to love it and care for it and feed it well and treat it like the amazing creature that it is.
Yeah, and it's sometimes tough to go forward with that when I was just thinking about how when I was younger, I went to this doctor and I had really bad acne at the time. And I suggested, like I remember reading that dairy could contribute to acne, and he shut down the idea. And so I almost abandoned that idea completely. And it wasn't until a little bit later where I actually implemented it and my acne started to clear. And that's when I knew, I'm like, okay, well, medical practitioners don't necessarily know about healing the body. They know how to cover up symptoms, because at the time he had given me some cream to put on my face for my acne. So anyways, it can be discouraging when you're getting feedback from doctors who are conventional medical practitioners who you trust so much. You're raised to believe that they have all the answers, but they don't always do, especially with chronic illness anyways. So
exactly. And what would you most like people to understand about your illness?
So I guess in terms of mental illness, I hope people understand more that other people's behavior, they don't always have complete control over it. You know, like sometimes it's linked to underlying mental health problems, and a lot of people might get like lash out at the person simply because of the other person's behavior, and it can become this vicious cycle. So I want people to understand that that other people's behavior, it's not always personal, and it's sometimes they're just struggling with demons, you know. So also it's not genetic either, because I feel like our environment has so much to do with it now. Your genes aren't determine your fate. So so if I look at my mom's side of the family, there's a lot of mental illness, but so there's definitely a genetic component, but overall I've beaten the odds, and I've controlled my environment to feel better. And I guess I want people to understand that you can overcome it by environmental factors, and you're not destined by your genes. So I guess those are the two main things.
Yeah, and I think that can be, you know, a belief that people buy into, and where they give up and just say, oh, well, you know, my mother had this, my father had this, I've got this, so it's just genetic, there's nothing that I can do about it. And I think, you know, no matter what situation you're in, my belief is always, no matter where you are, what happens to you, there's always a way that you can do something to make yourself feel better in that situation, or to help yourself in that situation. I mean, we know that from extremes of people that have survived, you know, incredibly difficult things, like, you know, in concentration camps, and, you know, there's been people who've experienced horrendous things, and with the right attitude and the right belief and the right encouragement, they've been able to rise above that and, you know, support themselves. And I think that's one of the biggest things that we could do with chronic illness is, you know, really understand that you are important, and what you think and the choices that you make, and that you have the power within you, a little bit by little bit, to support yourself and help yourself by what you're willing to do. And I think that's, you know, all those things like, you know, genetics is just a label that people get defeated by and think that there's nothing I can do, then it's out of my control.
Yeah, because I definitely fell into that camp for a while too, because there was a point where I'd been on medication, off medication, tried so many different things back and forth, and then at one point I just went back on the medication, and I guess this is it. I'm just gonna have to do this. But yeah, it just takes time. You eventually hit a point where it's like, okay, maybe I can do this. You know, I think I can do it. And then you end up doing it, and you look back to, okay, thank God I kept going. You know, just I'm glad I didn't give up. So, anyways, yeah.
Yeah, it's like this little thing that I saw yesterday, a little meme that just said, you know, sometimes you've got to be your own hero. And I think anybody faced with chronic illness is on a hero's journey. And it is, there's many long dark nights of the soul, and there's many moments of despair and fear and all of that. And it is, you know, just that every day, just taking one step at a time and doing what you can do to help yourself and make yourself feel better.
Yeah, and I also don't want to come across as if I think everyone should absolutely give up all medication and do my way, because I mean, it's been a lot of work. I mean, I don't want to completely throw out the idea of medication, because it absolutely helped me for a long time. It's just, I also feel like it had some downsides, and it took more work to not only recover from the illness, but from the medication as well. So it's like, yeah. So anyways, I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people can get caught up on the whole thing as, you know, well, I'm only going to be in remission if I'm not taking medication, or if I have to take medication, that means in some way that I've failed or I haven't tried hard enough. And that's, you know, that's nonsense. We've got to be practical about this. You know, there's all different ways of healing. There's all different types of, you know, disease and things going on. And medication is just one of those things that, you know, you have to do, and you might have to come to terms with. I know people with Hashimoto's, you know, some whose thyroids haven't been really badly damaged have been able to, you know, diet alone, or something has been enough to get them into remission, and they don't need that. And ideally, I would love that for myself, because the hardest thing for me to accept as someone who lived with, you know, what I thought was really good health, and in my 50s wasn't on any medication at all, was having to take medication every day, and understanding if I didn't take that medication every day, there's a good chance that I would become incapacitated again. And that really took a while to wrap my head around. But, you know, who knows what is possible. So I just think, thank goodness I've got my natural desiccated thyroid. It's been a great help to me. I'm grateful that I've got it. I'm grateful people have come up with it and that I can get it. So, you know, it's sort of being grateful for whatever props you use, whether it's medication or diet or whatever, just being grateful that you've got them and they're contributing to creating better health for you.
Yeah, just having so much information at our fingertips nowadays, that's amazing. You know, like you think about in the past, maybe 50 years ago, our grandparents would never have any of this information. So we have so many more tools. So having the medication and all these other tools at our exposure, it's just amazing. So.
Oh, for sure. The internet saved me. It saved my life.
Yeah.
Because that's all I did for about the first 6 months. That was all I was capable of doing, was sitting on the couch and using my iPad and doing my research and just working out what I could do. Mm-hmm. So Jordan, what changes have you made to your life to help you create better health? And which one of those was the most challenging for you?
So I've done so many things. I'm trying to think. So of course, just nutrition and diet. So cooking my own food every day. So that's kind of a hassle sometimes, because I'm not much of a cook. I just kind of cook the same things over and over. So I don't get too creative with it. So that is somewhat challenging, because you get kind of sick of it. But so that's one thing. I take supplements every day for my health, and I have to. Like, if I don't take certain supplements, I just won't feel as well. So I just have to do that. Exercise, I always did exercise though, but it was never enough. You know, you always hear people say, oh, just eat right and exercise and you'll be able to get over your depression, but it's not the case for a lot of people. So, but I've always done it and still do, mostly lift weights. Sleep, I wear like blue light blocking glasses before sleep. I have like my sleep routine that helps me fall asleep more quickly and deeply. Meditation, I've always dabbled with meditation, but now I'm really into it now. But so all those things they're pretty straightforward, I guess. But the most challenging was actually accepting that I was going to need to go and find certain practitioners to help me too, because I'm kind of an independent thinker, and I like to do my own thing and run my own show pretty much. And I thought, oh, I don't need anyone. You know, all the conventional medicine practitioners didn't help me, so I don't need anyone, right? But I realized I needed to. I had to find a neurofeedback practitioner who knew what she was doing, and she's amazing at what she does. So that was necessary. I ended up doing EMDR too. So it's a type of therapy. So I kind of ignored that part of the equation for a very long time. because I thought, oh, it's all physical. I just need to fix my body and I'll be fine. But there's definitely still an emotional component to it. So, but that whole part was challenging because I thought I could do it myself, and it's not the case. And I guess earlier I was talking about how no doctor is going to help you, but they're still critical. You know, like sorry, not no doctor is going to help you, but no doctor is going to completely fix you. But yeah, it's absolutely still critical to reach out to certain people who have specific skills that you know will be able to help you and follow through with it. So yeah, it took me a while to accept that, but I ended up doing it. So yeah.
I think that was one of the biggest struggles for me was, you know, realizing I had to stop being this independent, which I'd been all my life, you know, because I think when you're an intelligent, competent person, you're like, as you say, running your own race, doing your own thing. And when I was so sick that I couldn't really care for myself or didn't know what was going to happen to me, I really had to start actively asking for help. And that was incredibly difficult for me to do, like really scary. I felt really vulnerable. But ultimately it's been a fantastic thing for me because, yeah, we can't do this alone. And I think, you know, there's a lot of things that contribute to chronic illness. And there's a lot of aspects of that. You know, you need the emotional, physical, spiritual, nutritional, all of those different factors combined come into that, you know, holistic approach that we've got to take to creating the best possible health for us.
Exactly. You really can't ignore any piece of the puzzle. And I guess for a while there I was, but I'm glad I did it all and feeling a lot better. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So Jordan, have any of your relationships changed as a result of you becoming chronically ill?
Yeah, so a lot of my friendships kind of fell apart because just people didn't really understand, and they didn't have the patience either. So I guess, yeah, when you have someone in your life who's mentally ill, it takes patience. You need a lot of patience to deal with them, and I don't blame people for not having the patience, because I mean it's tough to deal with someone who's really depressed or really anxious or pulls away and does their own thing, and it's not personal when someone does that, but anyway, so yeah, so relationships did fall apart, but it was really just a lack of awareness and understanding of it, really. So but then again, the right people stuck around though. So some of the people that stayed with me throughout it all, they're my best friends. You know, the fact that they're still here hanging out with me, you know, it means so much. So it's I don't worry too much about the relationships that have ended, because I mean the ones that continued mean the world to me now. So yeah.
It can certainly make your existing relationships much richer and deeper. And, you know, it's a really good sorting process, isn't it? Because you find out who genuinely cares about you. And, you know, part of that process of, you know, you becoming more vulnerable or asking for help or talking to people more, just, you know, them watching you go through that experience, because, you know, it can be hard, particularly with, you know, acquired brain injury. That's a scary thing, because people from the outside can't see any reason why there's been a change, and it could markedly change people's normal emotional responses and their behaviour. And a lot of people, you know, just have difficulty dealing with that because they can't really see what's wrong.
Yeah, exactly, because it's invisible, right? So, and after I had my my brain injury, I went on medication too. So to the outside world, I seemed a lot better because I was on antidepressants. So all of a sudden, to then come off the medication, try to come off of it, and then fall apart again, people around me they wouldn't connect the dots. They wouldn't realize that, like I didn't tell them too much about it, they wouldn't realize that. They probably thought, oh, it was better. That concussion was a while ago. You know, his behavior isn't related to that at all. So yeah, it's completely understandable. I look back, I'm like, okay, it makes sense that some people wouldn't understand and relationships would fail. That's just the way the world works sometimes. So yeah.
And, you know, that's the whole nature of why chronic illness is such a difficult thing for everybody to deal with, you know, particularly doctors and things, because they can't fix it. you know, they really can't fix it. And, you know, people who care for people with things like depression or really high anxiety and things like that, they suffer burnout because, you know, they have compassion burnout because they feel helpless because there's nothing they can do to help the person stop feeling what they're feeling. And in the end, they end up getting resentful and angry because they want the person to stop being that way so that they will feel better. And that's a normal, natural part of the human experience, which I think it's what's really important, that anybody with chronic illness should think about getting therapy as one of their things to help support them, because it can sometimes be unrealistic to expect the people in your life who don't have that training to really be able to understand what's going on and support you. Would you tend to agree with that, Jordan?
I definitely agree with that, especially now. Yeah, you just don't want to unload so much on the other person who's close to you, because, I mean, that's just, it can backfire, you know, like it can be a disaster waiting to happen if like people just, family members aren't going to be able to keep up with it and help you as much as a professional would be able to. So yeah, I agree that people should definitely seek out a practitioner, like a therapist to work with instead, so that your personal life doesn't get affected too much. Yeah.
Fantastic. And what advice would you give the partner or family of someone who's just been diagnosed with what you've gone through?
I guess be patient would be the main thing, because it's going to take a lot of time. Have understanding. I guess it's very related to the last question. So yeah, just be aware that it's going to take time, and there's so many different possible solutions that it's going to take time just to find the solutions and try to implement them. And yeah, I don't have much more to say about that, but yeah, definitely be patient overall would be the key thing. Would be the key thing.
I think that's good advice. And just to finish up, Jordan, what's the one thing that you've done that's made the biggest difference to how you feel and live now? If you could just choose one of those things.
One thing I would probably say neurofeedback. Actually, without a doubt, actually, neurofeedback was life-changing. I feel like they need to have that in schools and prisons, because maybe it was just the practitioner that I saw who was really qualified. I can't say for sure, but after I went through all the neurofeedback sessions, it was I felt like a different person, and it really just calmed me down and brought me back down to earth a little bit. Like it was just a really missing piece. So I think I really needed it after I had multiple concussions, because just my brain was all knocked around. So yeah, neurofeedback would be the most effective thing that has helped me the biggest difference. But then again, also changing my diet helps so much too. So I cut out gluten, all dairy. I'm also allergic to egg whites, so it's kind of strange. I can eat the egg yolks, but not the egg whites, so I need to throw away the egg whites. So all those things helped as well. But that was so long ago, so it's kind of like I'm so used to eating that way, it doesn't feel as like impactful anymore. But if people try it, I have a feeling that they would notice it, a big difference as well. Because when I first did it, I remember my asthma really went away then. So. And then wrapped up in that would be healing the gut too. That made a huge difference. So I guess they're kind of one and the same. You need to cut out certain foods for the gut to heal. So yeah, neurofeedback's not necessarily accessible to everyone. So I don't want, or maybe not even necessary for everyone, but it definitely made the hugest impact for me. But the most accessible thing to do, which also made a huge impact, is changing diet and healing the gut. So, yeah.
And I think that's something that everybody agrees is just so important. So, Jordan, can you tell everybody a bit about what you do and, you know, what information they can find from you and where they can find you on the internet?
Yeah, sure. So I guess if you just Google my name, Jordan Fallis, you'll find my website. It should be one of the first results. It's optimallivingdynamics.com. I just share everything I've done to get better. Pretty much I just research and write really long articles about it, and then kind of just tell my own personal experience with it, with each article. There's a contact page there. I have an email there, contact form. So I try to respond to everyone who emails me with questions. So social media through there too. So Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. So you can add me on all those. I also give away a free food guide through my website too. It's just like a grocery shopping list with all the best foods that I eat every day for my brain. So I just kind of package it together and put it in a list for everyone. So, and that's at my website, optimallivingdynamics.com. So, yeah.
Fantastic. And yeah, I can tell everyone who's watching that, you know, Jordan writes really good, very well researched articles with lots of information. And, you know, I really love, Jordan, that, you know, you want to help people who are desperate. And I think there are a lot of desperate people who are looking for some sort of answer, and particularly if it's something fairly simple and it's something they can do for themselves. So I think what you're doing is a fantastic thing.
Thank you. Yeah, I try to do my best. It's funny because the actual writing process, like as a writer, it's kind of painful to me. I actually don't like it because I just stress over writing an article so well. I just want to make it so good. And it's not until it's published and I get some feedback from people that it makes all the difference. So so I appreciate that you're saying that you like my articles, because it's kind of painful. It sounds funny. Why would I do something so painful? But I mean, I feel like it's worth it once it's published, you know. So
yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah, and yeah, clearly it's you know, it's something that you've experienced, that you want to help people, you know, not have to go through what you've done, or if they're struggling, you know. And that was part of my motivation for doing this. You know, if I hadn't have experienced chronic illness, we wouldn't be sitting here talking right now, because, you know, that's what I wanted. I desperately wanted to find out how to cope emotionally with coming to terms with having a chronic illness and everything that entailed, and all the changes. And, you know, there was lots of medical information out there, but there wasn't much about, you know, the emotional side. So, you know, I think we all sort of put out there what we're hoping to get, or what we were looking for. And I think everybody doing that gives somebody else a part of the puzzle, because I don't really believe there are any accidents. I think you find exactly what you need when you're looking, and it's people like you that are giving somebody exactly what they need. So it's great work.
Thank you. Yeah, because I couldn't just walk away feeling better and not scream it from the rooftops, pretty much. You know what I mean? I just couldn't do it. I thought about it. I'm like, oh, well, maybe I should just move on with my life now, because like I've spent so much time getting better. I'm like, well, I should probably, I'm just not going to do that. I just decided I wasn't going to do it. So, and yeah, even your website, Emotional Autoimmunity, I've never seen anything like that as well. So keep doing what you're doing, because I always see things about autoimmunity, how to get better from autoimmune diseases, but I don't. Yeah, it's the combination of them that's very interesting. So thanks for doing what you're doing as well.
Thanks, Jordan. Well, it was lovely to meet you, and I'm looking forward to coming back in a couple of weeks with doing another interview. So thanks everyone for watching. Thanks for listening, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.